This is just my podcast buddy. So today, introducing myself. My name is Caitlin Barajas. I am 21 years old. I am Latina and Indigenous, and I am also queer. The text that I'm going to be going over today is from the book Gender Panic and Gender Policy by Edwin S. Segal. And the specific chapter that we're going over is going to be the chapter called Subverting the Dominant Paradigm, Cross-Cultural Approaches to Understanding Gender. And this is his excerpt as well. Okay, I had to cut real quick because I had a little bit of an interruption. And I do want this to be a bit of an informal podcast, but still make sure I tackle the topics, still make sure that I add my critique and my comments, and make sure that I just add what I can as a student learning this, and as someone who I'm, gonna go beyond a student and become a master, and then become a teacher myself. So let's get into it. So I want to start off with defining queer as an intention for me throughout this video. And I'm going to go based off of the definition that I heard in a podcast by Margaret Weiss in Discipline and Desire. And so in this podcast episode, she defines queer as a resistance, as an opening, as a mesh, as a form of resilience against the normal. It's like beyond what we think as like gay or straight, lesbian, whatever, like going beyond LGBTQ identity itself. Queerness is like a way of life. It's a way of life. It's an idea of life. It's a possibility for another world. These are all ways that she described it. And I really, really agree with that definition. I really agree with using the word queer as not just an identity, but as an outlook on life, as a lifestyle. Transition the podcast, now getting into the text. Okay, so, my cat's playing with this. So let's begin with the purpose of this text. It's supposed to be a frame of reference in academia. And I think this is really, really important because before I got into the book, the chapter and was done reading all of it, I already was coming into this thinking, okay, the purpose is as like a frame of reference, and I think that's really, really important because they go in to say that there really is no frame of reference when it comes to like academic acknowledgement and study and research when it comes to this topic, and our social science understanding of gender and our very, very black and white binary is inadequate, and it's incorrect. It completely ignores the entire science that there are it's more than just one and two. Gender expression is persisting. I'm just thinking back to how it's like normal human experiences. And so I guess when I'm thinking to myself like, oh my God, well, how is all of this being erased? And obviously colonization. And so it's like, it just so happens that, one culture started to see certain things as wrong, but they're normal, they existed. Like if gender was just purely cultural, like if gender was just purely something learned, then I don't think we'd be going through this problem of it being erased. Like, it's like it existed and it just manifested in different ways, and some cultures are accepting, some are not. Some were accepting and then learned to be unaccepting. For a lot of us, Western ideals have led to us not accepting it. And I just wanted to touch on that and to acknowledge that like gender is just life, like expressions of life, and how a person most authentically expresses themselves. And throughout history, that's been as cis men, that's been as cis women, it's been as intersex people, as one, like, you know, it's just a variety. And so, to get back on track, let's go into the methodology. So this writing is based off of other ethnographic literature. And I think that's a really good source, honestly. I feel like the best source would obviously be direct interaction with the people and culture that you are writing about. But that's exactly what like ethnography is. And his chapter on this is, to me, the next step of ethnography. So like, you know, he's not the ethnologist that talked to these people, but he is one of the academics who's now studying what that first ethnographist did, you know? Like, I think it's the next step, and it's necessary. And although I don't think, I think even like me and the class reading this is also a step. It's like, actually, I would say the most important step in decolonizing. And just like, I'm trying to think of the whole point of like, why do we research this? Why do we do this? It's because something's wrong, and it's because these things have been burned from us, taken from us, stolen from us. People have given up, like, over time. It's like these are normal topics that we're talking about. It's just life. But I think the reason why I'm so passionate, and like why students in our class are so passionate, is because it's something that we have to like fight for, and something that we have to take up space because of like the Western world and colonization and all of that. And so yeah, the methodology makes sense to me. And I think it's not just like working with what you have. I think it's actually the next step at expanding and getting to a point where I guess our history is correct, or where we can live life like equitably, I guess. The end goal is decolonization, right? Like, the end goal is to have freedom of expression and all of, like, just to be able to live the way you want to live. So I want to get into the limitations of this book. And the limitations would be that this is a small scale analysis. And, you know, this isn't even like the first source. This is based off of sources that already exist. And so this author had to find stuff, and it's limited. You know, there's not systemic data. Like, there's not a large macro scale like reference for us. And I thought to myself, like, how can this be measured by nations and not just you know, these small cultural groups that are examples of life outside the norm? Like, how can we actually measure this in the norm and get accurate results, or fair results, I guess? And I feel like I said this in the last podcast, and I just said this right now too. It's education. It starts with education, because correcting our standard binary and actually having an adequate social science understanding of gender is literally the first step. Like, we need to correct the facts. Our facts are wrong, and a lot of people will die on that hill of like thinking they are true, but our facts are not true. Like, it just comes down to that. And once we fix those facts, which we have started to do, and I've seen it on social media platforms and in real life, it's getting corrected. We're like how a lot of people think it's either man or woman. You're either a man or woman. That's not even true scientifically. That's not even like, there are people out there who are intersex. They're like, it's not even backed by science. And at this point, like, in our very polarized world, there are a lot of people who don't care about the facts. And, there's a push for schools to not have this kind of information in it. That's horrific, because this is the only way putting this in education, I feel like, is the only way to begin the revolution. There are some fruit flies. I'm so sorry. I left some fruit out, I guess, or something sweet. Oh man. Okay. Well, now I want to get a close look into a part of the book. I wanted to add that I feel like having an adequate social understanding and having the facts being changed to really encompass all of the facts and all of the truth, all of the experiences of people, it's happening, but sometimes it feels like it comes down to who isn't transphobic, who isn't homophobic. Sometimes even going through that yourself doesn't really give you an outsider perspective. A lot of people, some people come out wanting to fight and keep their resilience, and that's amazing and that's brave, but a lot of people also assimilate, and that in itself sometimes can't even be faulted, because it's literally life or death. And so it's really complicated right now. I feel like we have the facts, there's still a lot to learn, but it's not like that we're uncovering something. And so it just kind of comes down to morals and religion and whatnot. To just end this off on an actual close look at the text. So I've already shared my thoughts, and I'm already a little over time, but I hope it's okay. So I want to take a close look at the actual cultures that are talked about in this text. And so the Greeks are mentioned as kind of like a Western example. Greece, many Native American people like Navajo, or I should say the Dene. There's also the mention of people from Siberia. There's the mention of, once again, a lot of North American Native Americans, Indonesia, China. There's a lot of cultures, a lot. Millions, billions, trillions. And I wanted to kind of add my experience when I connect with just these inherent parts of indigeneity. It's just the last thing I feel like that spiritualism, indigenous spiritualism, is going to do is going to restrict a way of life that is pure and honorable. And if you are two-spirited, that is pure and honorable. If you are transgender, that is pure and honorable. You're not living your life making crimes and blah blah blah, whatever. So let me just conclude this podcast episode with just a little summary of what I went over, and critiques and about this chapter. I wouldn't say I have any critiques, because although I didn't touch on one of the main cultures that that is included in this chapter, I think my reason for not going into that culture is because I could see so much of my own experience within this, within what was being written and what's being said by the author. And so with that being said, I agree with their justifications, with the research that they show. They're proving that these different genders have always existed, and they've been the norm at times, and now they're not the norm for a lot of people. But I agree that there needs to be a larger paradigm. The paradigm needs to be built, if not added, constructed, modified. Something needs to change. And I think the biggest point that I want to end this podcast is that this chapter is necessary. And I also believe that me speaking about it is necessary. And I think the class that we're in is necessary. Everything's necessary to get to our end goal, or to just, maybe there's not even an end goal. The goal is to just do what we can now, fix what we can now, educate ourselves. Really enjoyed this chapter of part of the book, Gender Panic, Gender Policy. And thank you so much for listening. And yeah, that's it.